My daughter didn't mean for us to hear it. That's the cruelest part. She simply forgot to hang up her phone. And suddenly, her voice came pouring through like a cold draft under a door. "They're becoming a burden," she said. "It's time we put them somewhere. A good facility. We can't keep carrying them." I was sitting at the kitchen table, fiddling with my reading glasses like I always do, when the newspaper print is too small. But this time it wasn't my eyes causing the blur. Elaine was wiping the counter, humming that old tune she always hums when she's nervous, until her hand froze mid-wipe. Then came the sentence that hollowed me out. "Their house alone is worth $760. If we sell it, we can finally take that trip. Clear the debts, start fresh." I stared at the phone lying on the table, muttering to myself, well, at least she still remembers math, because sometimes a joke is the only thing holding a man together. Elaine shot me a look half broken, half trying not to cry. I leaned back in my chair and felt the wood creak under me. Even the chair sounded offended. I wasn't angry yet. Anger needs space. What I felt was something quieter, heavier, like the house itself was exhaling after hearing it. I remembered every roof shingle I'd nailed with my own hands. Every time I fixed the furnace instead of calling a repairman because college is expensive. Dad. I remembered carrying her on my shoulders at the county fair, sticky fingers in my hair, shouting at the world that her father was invincible. And now she was budgeting me out of my own home. Somewhere between all that, the words slipped out of me, the way they do when I'm trying not to break. Subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments how old you are and where you're from. For you, it's just a small thing. But for me, it's the reason I keep telling these stories. Elaine blinked slowly. She's used to my muttering, but she placed her hand on my shoulder. Warm. Shaking a little. We didn't say a word while the call kept going. We just listened until the silence returned, thick and strange, like the house was waiting to see what we'd do. I stood up, looked around the kitchen we'd built together, the chipped mug, the old clock that clicks louder when the room is tense, and I felt something inside me settle. Not collapse, settle. They really think we're done, but they have no idea what we're still capable of. And the very next morning, long before Elaine finished making breakfast, we discovered that our daughter wasn't just talking, she'd already taken the first step toward erasing us, and the proof was sitting right in our own mailbox. The envelope in our mailbox looked harmless, just a neat white rectangle tucked between a grocery flyer and something addressed to current resident, which always irritates me because I've lived here longer than most of the trees on this street. But Elaine handed it to me with that uneasy tilt of her eyebrows she gets when she senses something wrong before I do. The return address said Benton, Low Real Estate, and that alone made my stomach tighten. We hadn't spoken to a realtor in decades. We weren't planning to. We weren't moving. I opened it with the butter knife because, of course, I couldn't find the letter opener I've kept in the same drawer since '92. Elaine swears I lose it on purpose. Maybe for entertainment. Inside was a glossy packet pictures of our house, taken from angles I didn't even know a camera could reach. Professional exterior evaluation, it said. Preliminary market preparation. My name was printed on the top, and under it, requested by Lena Conway. Elaine pressed a hand to her chest. I felt something inside me twist. Not quite pain, not quite disbelief, something worse. She ordered this? Elaine whispered. I nodded, though nodding felt like admitting to something I didn't want to believe. Our daughter had already begun the process. Without a conversation, without a question. She'd sent someone to appraise the life we'd built, every brick, every window, every memory, like it was a used car she planned to trade in. I walked to the living room, holding the packet like it was radioactive. I sat in my old armchair, me throne, as the grandkids used to call it, back when they still visited. The chair groaned under me, and I muttered, "Don't worry, old friend. They're not selling you yet." Elaine actually snorted, laughing through her tears, and I swear that tiny laugh kept me from losing my mind right then. But the more I read, the worse it got. A recommended listing price. Timeline. Notes from the realtor. Daughter is eager. Wants to move quickly. Parents open to transition soon. I felt my ears get hot. My ears only get hot when I'm furious. Or when I accidentally eat spicy chili this time. It wasn't the chili. Open to transition? I said. Did I miss a meeting where we both agreed to vanish? Elaine sat beside me, taking my hand the way she does when she wants to keep me from saying something I'll regret, but for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like biting my tongue. I felt awake, like someone had shaken the dust off my bones. All the little indignities, forgotten birthdays, rushed visits, the way Lena talked over me like I was already fading suddenly lined up in my mind like dominoes, and this envelope pushed the first one down. I looked at Elaine, and she looked at me with the same realization dawning in her eyes. They weren't planning to help us. They were planning to replace us. And right then, sitting in that creaky armchair, with that awful packet in my hands, a thought came to me, quick, clear, and dangerous. Something we could do. Something that would change everything. But before I could say it out loud, there was a knock on our front door. A quick, sharp knock that made Elaine gasp and made me sit up straighter. Because deep down, I already knew who it was, and why they had come. I don't know why, but that knock felt personal. Not polite. Not casual. The kind of knock someone uses when they believe they own the right to enter your life without being invited. Elaine stiffened beside me, and I could swear even the clock on the wall paused for a second. I got up slower than I meant. Tommy knee cracked loud enough to echo, which ruined the dramatic effect. But what can you do? Age adds sound effects where they aren't needed. When I opened the door, there he was. Miles, our daughter's husband, standing on my porch like he was checking the foundation before buying it. He didn't even smile, just nodded like a landlord inspecting a rental. Hey, just dropping by, he said. That man, just dropping by, is like a shark, just stretching its fins. Something was always behind it. Elaine whispered a greeting from the living room, her voice small, like she was trying not to provoke a wild animal. Miles stepped inside without waiting for my permission, brushing past me, leaving me standing there wondering when exactly my own home became a public lobby. He had a clipboard tucked under his arm, of course he didn't. He started glancing around as if mentally labeling things. Old chair, replace, dated carpet, remove, sentimental nonsense, trash. I followed him into the living room, trying to stay calm, though my left eye does this little twitch when I'm on the edge. Miles, I said slowly, this isn't a good time. Oh, he replied, waving dismissively. Lena just wanted me to take a few quick photos. Helps with planning. Planning what? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he crouched down to photograph the fireplace, then the ceiling, then my face accidentally, I hope. Elaine shot me a look that said, don't explode, and I did my best. I even tried to distract myself by scratching that itchy spot on my neck. I can never reach properly. I must have looked like a confused bear rubbing against a tree, because Miles actually chuckled. You okay there? He asked. Fine, I said, just allergic to nonsense. He ignored that and wandered into the hallway like a man inspecting a museum he didn't respect. My patience was thinning. My dignity was creaking. But underneath all that, something else was forming. Something sharp. Something steady. He paused at the family photos on the wall, birthdays, graduations, grandkids sitting on my knee. Cute, he said. Not affectionate. More like he was complimenting a cat-shaped cookie jar. Then he added, these will probably have to come down. Buyers prefer a blank canvas. Buyers, canvas. My house. My life. My memories. Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, but cleanly, like a twig that has been bent too far for too long. I stepped in front of him, blocking the hallway. Miles, I said quietly, put the camera down. He blinked. I'm just trying to help. That's the problem, I replied. You help like a man rearranging furniture in a house he doesn't own yet. Elaine slipped to my side, her hand gripping mine. I could feel her trembling, but it wasn't fear, it was the same realization that hit me earlier. We had let them walk over us for far too long. Miles opened his mouth to argue, but then his phone buzzed. He read the message. His expression changed, and without another word, he marched to the door and left. Elaine and I stared at each other, breath held, hearts pounding. Whatever that message was, whatever had suddenly pulled him away, it meant our daughter had moved to the next step. And when we checked the caller ID on the house phone minutes later, we understood something terrifying. They weren't just planning to sell the house. They had already scheduled the meeting. The house phone rarely rings anymore. These days, it's mostly telemarketers, offering senior packages and exclusive discounts, which I politely decline before Elaine grabs the receiver, and not so politely declines for me. But this time, when the phone lit up, I saw the name on the caller ID and felt something cold slide down my spine. Benton. Low appointment confirmation. Elaine covered her mouth. I picked up the phone slowly, half hoping it was a mistake, half hoping the caller would say something sane like, "Sorry, wrong number. Your daughter's not trying to erase you." But no, a cheerful voice chirped, "Good afternoon. We're confirming your meeting for Monday at 10 a.m. regarding the sale of your property. Will both of you be attending?" I glanced at Elaine. She looked like someone had unplugged her from the world. My first instinct was to shout that we never agreed to anything, but instead, in a moment of bizarre panic, I blurted, "Monday? Oh, I can't. That's laundry day." Elaine's head snapped toward me, whispering, "Laundry day?" I shrugged helplessly. Panic does strange things to a man. The woman on the phone laughed politely. "We'll pencil you in anyway," she said. I nearly told her to erase the whole pencil. When I hung up, Elaine sank into the nearest chair like her bones suddenly weighed more. I sat beside her, but it wasn't gentle. I missed the cushion completely and landed half on the wood frame. The chair barked. My hip barked louder. And Elaine let out a tiny snort laugh that escaped even though she was miserable. "You're going to break yourself before they even move us," she whispered. I rubbed my hip. If I break something, at least the ER won't try to sell the house. We sat in silence for a few seconds until something inside mellowed anger. Not fear, but a stubborn, old man electricity finally sparked. "Elaine," I said, "they're scheduling meetings for us. They're making decisions for us. In our home, using our names." She nodded slowly, tears pooling, but not falling. "I think it's time," I continued, "to remind our daughter that her parents are not furniture she can rearrange." Elaine looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years, a mixture of disbelief, pride, and the faintest glimmer of mischief. She straightened her back, wiped her cheeks, and said, "What exactly do you have in mind?" I leaned in, lowering my voice even though no one else was in the house, because it made the moment feel more dangerous. "If they want to treat us like we're helpless," I said, "then let's show them what helpless really looks like when we decide to stop playing along." Elaine raised an eyebrow. "Are we actually doing this?" I nodded, and she whispered, "Then they're not ready for what's coming." And just when we were forming our plan, the doorbell rang, this time not a knock, but a long, insistent chime that felt almost triumphant. Someone else had arrived. Someone who wasn't supposed to be here yet. The doorbell rang so long it sounded less like a visitor and more like someone leaning on it while having an existential crisis. Elaine flinched. I groaned. Even the dog from next door barked, probably thinking, finally, some drama. I shuffled toward the door, trying to project authority, but my slipper got half stuck under the rug, and I stumbled forward like a man lunging at his own doorknob. Great entrance. Very intimidating. When I opened the door, there stood a woman in a bright blazer, holding a tablet and wearing a smile that had clearly been trained in a seminar titled, "Be Friendly While Ruining Lives." "Good afternoon," she beamed. "I'm Marla, your assigned realtor. I'm here to take preliminary interior notes before Monday's meeting." Elaine appeared behind me, and I felt her grip the back of my shirt like she was trying to prevent me from either fainting or committing a misdemeanor. Marla stepped inside without hesitation, complimenting the foyer rug, the crown molding, the lighting, everything except the owners, which seemed fitting. "Now," she chirped, tapping her tablet, "we'll start with the dining room." I stepped in front of her. "No, we won't." She blinked, confused but still smiling. "Oh, is there a better room to begin with?" Yes, I said. The one you're not entering. Elaine let out a tiny, strangled sound, half laugh, half panic. Marla, still performing her customer service optimism, tried again. Your daughter said you were eager to begin the process. She mentioned you two were ready for a transition. Such a wonderful attitude for this stage of life. Stage of life. Transition, like we were migrating ducks. Or being prepped for a museum exhibit called Parents. A species fading. I felt my eyebrow twitch the twitch. Elaine calls my "don't push me," or I'll start grumbling about politicians twitch. Marla, I said slowly, we haven't agreed to sell anything. She spun the tablet toward me. Our names were typed in. Digital signatures, not ours, already filled the lines. Elaine gasped. I swear I felt something ancient ignite inside me. Not anger, something deeper, older, forged from years of sacrifice and silent endurance. Those aren't our signatures, I said. Marla frowned. Your daughter assured us everything was handled. She said you two were forgetful. Forgetful. The word slapped me harder than anything else that week. Not old. Not tired. Not needing help. Forgetful. As if our memories were optional. As if our voices didn't count. Elaine stepped forward now, steadier than she'd been all day. We didn't sign anything, she said, her voice thin but sharp. Marla hesitated. Should I return another time? No, I said. You should leave now. She looked from me to Elaine, then back again, and for the first time, the smile faded. She backed toward the door, murmuring something about miscommunication and legal follow-up. When the door clicked shut, the silence felt like a held breath finally released. Elaine sank into the nearest chair, this time hitting the cushion perfectly, and whispered, It's worse than we thought. I nodded. They're not waiting for us to agree. They're moving without us. Elaine looked up at me slowly. We need a real plan, she said. And I answered, We will. But first, there's something I need to show you. Because earlier that morning, before the envelope, and before the knock, I'd found something in the attic, something our daughter didn't know. Existed, something that could change everything.
When my husband said, There's something I need to show you, I honestly thought he meant a loose floorboard or another spider he wanted me to deal with. He's brave until something has more than 6 legs, then suddenly, I'm the warrior of the household. But he led me up the attic stairs with that determined walk he only uses when he's either about to fix something or break something on purpose. The attic smelled like old cedar and dust, comforting, familiar. I always tell him we should clean it, and he always says, Why? The dust lives here. But that morning, the clutter didn't feel cozy. It felt like it was holding its breath. He knelt beside an old steamer trunk we hadn't opened in years, the one his uncle left him. I remember joking once that the trunk probably contained a family curse. Turns out it held something even more surprising. Documents. Real ones. Legal ones. He handed them to me gently, as if he thought I might faint. Read this, he said. The first page alone made my pulse spike. Our will, our estate plan, our home title, a letter from our attorney from years ago we had forgotten we even made. I looked up at him sharply. These are still active? He nodded. Every line, every clause, everything still stands, including the one part no one remembers. I flipped through the pages and found it. A clause stating that no sale, transfer, or legal action involving our home could be initiated by anyone but you, Sever, under any circumstance. Not by our daughter, not by her husband, not by anybody. My breath caught. I felt something inside me, something bruised and quiet all these days, lift its head for the first time. That girl has no idea, I whispered. Oh, she has plenty of ideas, he said, just none that matter legally. For a moment we just stared at each other, stunned. Then I started laughing. It wasn't delicate, it wasn't elegant. It was the laugh of a woman who had been pushed too far, and finally found the right weapon. I laughed so hard my husband panicked and patted my back like I was choking on a pretzel. Elaine, breathe. I am breathing, I wheezed, wiping my eyes. I'm enjoying this. And suddenly, everything shifted. My spine straightened. My heartbeat steadied. My fear shrank to something small and pitiful. They think they can ship us off like old luggage, I said. They think we're fragile. They think we're done. My husband grinned, but it wasn't a kind grin. It was the grin he had when he coached Little League, and the opposing coach tried to cheat. The grin of a man preparing for a quiet, devastating victory. "I knew you'd like this part," he said. I put the documents back into the trunk, closed the lid, and brushed dust from my hands. "All right," I said. "We have the law on our side, but they don't know that yet. Let's not tell them." He raised an eyebrow. "You want to wait?" I nodded. "Oh yes. Let them walk right into the mess they created. Let them think they're winning." I stepped toward the attic window, looking out at the street, the maple tree he planted decades ago, and the life our daughter clearly didn't respect anymore. And instead of crying like I had been doing for days, I smiled. Because for the first time since this nightmare began, we had something stronger than hope. We had leverage. And just as I opened my mouth to tell my husband the next step in our plan, his phone buzzed on the attic floor. The screen lit up with a message from our daughter. And what she wrote made my knees go weak, not from fear, but from the kind of anger that finally knows exactly where to land. The message from Lena lit up the phone bright as a warning flare. I picked it up before my husband could, mostly because I didn't trust him not to throw it out the attic window. The text was crisp, cold, and horrifyingly confident. "Meeting confirmed. Since you two forget things lately, Miles and I have taken over the paperwork. Don't worry, it's easier for everyone this way. Forget things. Easier for everyone." I felt my hand tighten around the phone so hard the case squeaked. My husband winced like I was hurting him by proxy. "Elaine," he murmured, "don't crack it. We can't afford another one of those phones." "Oh, we can't afford anything," I snapped. "We're old, remember? Practically fossils. No responsibilities, no opinions, no legal rights according to our very smart daughter." He reached for the phone to read the message, but I pulled it back. "Not yet," I said. "I want to enjoy the moment before your blood pressure explodes." He muttered something about his blood pressure already retiring without him, which made me snort. The attic dust puffed up, and I immediately sneezed, so violently I nearly headbutted him. He steadied me with both hands. "If we survive the dust," he said, "maybe we'll survive our daughter too." I finally handed him the phone. He read it, jaw tightening, the muscle in his cheek twitching like he was trying not to bite air. "She really thinks we're losing our minds," he said, "as if we've forgotten our own names." "Oh, she'll remember ours," I replied, "when the lawyer reads them back to her aloud." We went downstairs, both trying to act casual in case the house itself was tattling on us. My husband paced the living room like a general preparing for battle. I sat at the dining table, smoothing the tablecloth while my thoughts spun faster than his pacing. "We need a distraction," I finally said. "For what?" "For everything. Let them keep moving forward. Let them keep thinking we're passive and confused. The deeper they go, the harder they'll fall when the truth hits." He scratched his head, looking skeptical. "What kind of distraction?" "The kind that makes them completely sure we're harmless," I said. "We play soft, helpless, a little slow even." He stared at me like I'd asked him to juggle flaming bowling balls. "Elaine, I already am slow." "Perfect," I said. "Let's use it." He didn't like that plan at first. His pride was bruised, I could tell. But then he sighed, shoulders loosening. "Fine. For the sake of the plan, I'll pretend to be confused." I raised an eyebrow. "Honey, you accidentally put your shoe in the fridge last week." "That was one time," he protested. "And it was a comfortable temperature in there." We stood there in the living room, surrounded by the furniture our daughter was so eager to erase, and something shifted between us. For the first time in days, we weren't scared. We weren't helpless. We were partners again like we were when we first built this life. Then the doorbell chimed again. Not a normal ring, but a rapid, urgent, nearly frantic series of presses. I exchanged a look with my husband, and for a moment, neither of us breathed. Because only one person rings a doorbell like that, someone who's sure they own what's behind it. I peeked through the curtain first, because my husband has a habit of yanking it aside like he's starring in a dramatic western. Sure enough, it was Lena on the porch, pacing, phone in hand, hair frazzled like she'd run out of patience and hairspray at the same time. Her husband, Miles, hovered behind her, holding a folder against his chest, like a schoolboy clutching homework he didn't actually do. My husband whispered, "Do we pretend we're not home?" I said, "We have 2 cars in the driveway and the kitchen lights on." He nodded. "So, yes?" I elbowed him. No. When I opened the door, Lena pushed past me with the confidence of someone entering the home she believes she already owns. Mom, Dad, we need to talk, she said, tossing her bag onto the sofa like it was hers to toss. My husband muttered, "Well, make yourself at home, just loud enough for me to elbow him again." Miles cleared his throat and held up a thick folder. "We brought the updated paperwork. We need your signatures today." The realtor said, I cut him off. The realtor was told to leave my house. Did she forget to mention that part? Lena rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might sprain something. Mom, please. We're trying to help you transition smoothly. You two are overwhelmed. You don't see it. I took a slow breath. Every muscle in my body wanted to scream. But I remembered the plan, the act, the soft distraction. I glanced at my husband and he immediately understood. He widened his eyes, furrowed his brow, and plastered on the expression he uses when he tries to remember where he left his reading glass usually on his own head. He shuffled forward slightly hunched, staring at the papers. "What's all this?" he asked in a faint, confused tone. My daughter sighed loudly, dramatically, the way she used to when we told her chores were part of life. "Dad, you forgot again? We've been over this. You two need full-time care, a place that can look after you." My husband blinked slowly. "A place like the dentist?" I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. Miles pinched the bridge of his nose. "Sir, it's a senior living community. Very professional." "Oh," my husband replied, eyes round with exaggerated innocence. "Will they let me bring my chair? My knees like that chair." Lena softened instantly. That softness, the pitying softness, was exactly what we needed. She put a hand on his arm. "Of course, Dad. We'll keep the chair." Behind her back, he winked at me. I nearly broke character. We let them talk for several minutes, letting them dig deeper into their fantasy of control. They spoke about amenities, supervised medication, and structured routines. My husband nodded along, murmuring things like, "Sounds lovely," and "Do they have pudding?" while I fought the urge to throw both of them out the window. Finally, Lena pushed the folder toward us. "All you need to do is sign," she said gently, as if speaking to toddlers. "Then we can handle everything. You won't have to think anymore." I felt something boil low in my stomach, a fierce, steady heat. She really believed it. She truly believed we were helpless. My husband reached for the pen. His hand shook, deliberately, dramatically. He hovered over the line, and then, just before touching the paper, he froze. "Lena," he whispered, voice trembling, "are you sure you're doing the right thing?" She leaned in, pity swelling in her face. "Yes, Dad, trust us." That was the moment I saw it. The perfect moment. The exact second to flip the entire script. I placed my hand over his, stopping him from signing. Then I looked straight at my daughter, steady, cold, unblinking. "Honey," I said softly, "before we sign anything, there's something you need to hear." Her smile faltered. Miles lowered the folder. Because I wasn't speaking like someone confused anymore. I was speaking like a woman who had finally remembered her strength. Lena froze when she heard my tone. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was the tone I used on her when she was 10 and tried to hide a failing math test behind a drawing of a cat. She knew that tone. It meant the discussion was no longer a discussion. "Honey," I said again, "sit down." She didn't. So I repeated it slowly, clearly, the way you'd tell someone to step away from a cliff. This time she obeyed. Miles sat too, but only because he never quite knows what to do unless someone tells him. My husband remained standing, which would have looked intimidating if he hadn't been leaning slightly on the table because his left knee decided to stage a rebellion. I took a breath and folded my hands over the folder. "Before we talk about signatures, before we talk about transitions, I want you to hear something. And I want you to listen, really listen, not the way you've been listening to us lately." Lena opened her mouth, probably to interrupt, but I lifted one finger. It was enough. She closed it. "You think we're forgetful?" I continued. "You think we're fading? You think we don't see what's happening?" My husband chimed in softly. "She doesn't think I think she hopes." I elbowed him lightly, not helping. "I'm old," he whispered. "Let me have fun." I turned back to our daughter. "Lena, Do you know what we were doing the day you and Miles were ordering realtors behind our backs? She blinked, confused. Good. We were in the attic, I said, going through old papers. Miles shifted uneasily. My husband grinned, hands behind his back like a magician preparing a reveal. And we found something, I said, tapping the folder gently. Something important, something binding, something you didn't know existed. Lena swallowed. Mom, what are you talking about? I reached into the folder, not the one they brought, but the one we had prepared, and pulled out the documents we found in the attic. I watched her face carefully, watched the confidence drain from her eyes line by line as she recognized what she was seeing. Our will, I said, our estate plan. And the clause your father insisted on, years ago, because he said— Here I looked at him. He straightened, puffed out his chest a little. I said, he declared proudly, Nobody touches my house unless they pry the hammer from my hand. You were dramatic even then, I added. Yes, he said, but legally effective. Lena grabbed the papers, scanning quickly. Her eyes widened, then widened more. Wait, this says yes, I cut in. It does. It says no sale can happen without our explicit consent. Not yours, not Miles's, not anyone's. Miles leaned forward, squinting at the page like small print personally offended him. But the realtor said— The realtor said nothing that matters, I replied. Lena pressed a hand to her forehead. Mom, Dad, why didn't you tell us? Because you didn't ask, I said. You decided. You assumed. You planned. And you treated us like empty chairs instead of parents. My husband spoke then, quiet, steady, more serious than I'd heard him in years. Lena, when you start treating people like they're already gone, eventually they start acting like they're done with you too. Silence fell, heavy. Lena looked at the table. Miles looked at the floor. My husband looked at me like he knew exactly what I was about to do next. I slid the fake signature papers across the table toward our daughter. Then I said the words that made her flinch. We're not signing anything. I leaned forward. You wanted control. Now you have none. And before the weight of that fully settled, before either of them could respond, the front door creaked open slow, hesitant. Someone else had arrived. Someone who wasn't supposed to walk into this moment, but whose presence would change everything in the final part. I recognized the footsteps before I saw the face, slow, reluctant, almost guilty. And when the door fully opened, there stood our grandson, Ethan, 16, tall, awkward, hands shoved in his hoodie pockets like he was trying to hide from the entire world. He looked at us. He looked at his mother. He looked at the stack of papers on the table. And then he whispered, Mom, please tell me you didn't actually do it. Lena spun around. Ithango, wait in the car. This is between adults. He shook his head. But Grandpa called me earlier. He said something bad was happening and he might need me. So no, I'm not leaving. My husband blinked at me in surprise. I didn't call him, I whispered back. I didn't either. We both turned to Ethan, confused. He sighed. I overheard you two talking last week. I figured you'd need backup. Backup. The word alone made something inside me break and heal at the same time. Ethan stepped closer, jaw trembling with the kind of anger kids feel when they see adults being unfair. Mom, he said sharply, they're not things. They're not burdens. They're not old furniture. They're my grandparents. And you don't get to throw them away. My daughter flinched. Not from us. From her own child. And that, more than anything, hit her where it hurt. Ethan, you don't understand, she began. No, he cut her off. You don't understand. They're the only people who came to my games. They're the only ones who listened when I talked. They're the ones who make this house feel like a home. My husband wiped his eyes and pretended his allergies were acting up. In winter, indoors. Ethan turned to me. Grandma, Grandpa, you're coming home with me if they try anything else. Lena broke then, not dramatically, not loudly. It was subtle. Her shoulders dropped. Her breath shook. She sat down slowly and covered her face with her hands. Mom, Dad, her voice cracked. I thought I was doing the responsible thing. I thought you needed help. I didn't realize I was hurting you. I stepped toward her, not to comfort her, not yet. You forgot we were still people, I said softly. Not projects, not problems. People. She nodded, tears sliding between her fingers. I'm sorry, she whispered. My husband put his hand on her back, the first gesture of warmth he'd given her in weeks. We don't need to be taken care of, he said gently. But we wouldn't mind being cared about. There's a big difference. Miles cleared his throat timidly. So, the house, the sale. My husband glared at him. The house stays ours. And if either of you tries something like this again, he looked at Ethan, who crossed his arms like a tiny bodyguard. You'll be answering to him first. Ethan grinned. Lena exhaled. Miles swallowed. And slowly painful, your family reset itself. Not perfect, not magically healed, but honest for the first time in a long, long while. That night, after they left, my husband and I stood on our porch watching the maple tree sway in the wind. He slipped his arm around me. Well, he murmured, looks like we're not going anywhere. I rested my head on his shoulder. No, I said, we're right where we belong. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt safe in our home again. Not because no one tried to take it from us, but because we finally remembered how to take it back.